You can see objectives on the screen for this video. At the end of this video, you will be able to describe limitations of CDS views, explain database procedure, features and limitations, describe what is AMDP, elaborate features of AMDP, and overview of code pushdown techniques. I'm sure till now you have definitely learned what is CDS view. You must have also tried couple of CDS views. Can you think of any limitation of CDS view? What you cannot do with CDS view? Obviously, you will not be able to write any ABAP statement in CDS view, but that cannot be considered as a limitation of CDS view because the purpose of CDS view is not to write ABAP statement. Please remember, the purpose of CDS view is code pushdown. It is a code pushdown technique. So considering this fact, now can you think of any limitation of CDS view? Okay, I will give you a hint. Here is one simple CDS view with a join statement. Two tables are joined, S custom and S book. A simple CDS view. However, in real life scenario, you don't get such simple requirements. What you get in your project is always a complex requirement. Now suppose you get such a complex requirement that you need to join 5 to 6 different database tables, and on top of that you are supposed to handle some calculations and aggregations. Now if you write a SQL statement for this, it will be a complex SQL statement. You will not be able to do the unit testing properly. You yourself will not be sure what is the output of this SQL statement. And handling authorizations on top of it will be a separate issue altogether. So in such cases, SAP recommends that instead of going for one big complex SQL statement, you break that complex statement into multiple simpler, smaller SQL statements. That means instead of writing a big SQL statement, you write a set of smaller, simpler SQL statements. Now, if you want to handle this requirement through CDS view, that means you will have to write multiple SQL statements in one single CDS view. Is it possible? Can you write more than one select statement in one single CDS view? No, that is not possible. So that is the first limitation of CDS view, that you can write only one single select statement in one CDS view. Now can you think of any other limitations of CDS view? Okay, I will give you another hint. Here is another CDS view with parameters. So CDS view is defined with parameters, so you can give a single input to CDS view. Yes, now you are right. Your question is right. If you can create CDS view with parameters, can you also create CDS view with select option? The answer is no. You cannot create CDS view with select options. That means you cannot give multiple values as an input to CDS view. That is the next limitation of CDS view. So you cannot give multiple input sets as an input to CDS view, and you cannot expect multiple output sets from your CDS view. That means these are the limitations of CDS view, that you can write only one single select statement in CDS view. You can have only one single input set and you can get only one single output set from your CDS view. As a result, you cannot handle complex requirements through your CDS view. That means in real life scenarios, if you get a complex requirement in your project, you cannot go for CDS view as a code pushdown technique. Then what is the solution? SAP has come up with the next code pushdown technique, that is database procedure. How it works? You create a database procedure in HANA database and then you create a proxy in ABAP layer. The way you work with modeling view similarly work with database procedure also. In case of modeling view, you create a modeling view in HANA database and then you create a proxy in ABAP layer. Similarly, you create a database procedure in HANA database, and if you want to consume it in ABAP side, you have to create a proxy for that. So what are the advantages of database procedure? One advantage is you can write multiple SQL statements in database procedure, and you can give multiple input sets to a procedure. As a result, you can also expect multiple output sets from a database procedure. So in short, you can say that you can handle complex scenarios with database procedure. So limitations of CDS view are covered in database procedure. However, since it is a bottom-up approach, there are some limitations of bottom-up approach. I hope when you have learned about CDS views, you have already learned about limitations of bottom-up approach. I am going to repeat those limitations here. First limitation is transportation. I am not saying that you will not be able to transport these objects. However, transportation scenario is not that easy. For example, if you create a database procedure in HANA database, you will be creating that in certain package. And then on top of that procedure, if you try to create a proxy in ABAP layer, that proxy you will be creating in some another package. And if you consume that proxy in different ABAP programs, you might create those different ABAP programs in some different packages or same package. So you end up having multiple different objects created at different places and created in different packages. So first you will have to club all these packages together, and then you will have to transport it from one system to another. Again, after transportation, you will have to distribute those at respective places. So that is why transportation is not that easy. Another issue of bottom-up approach is maintenance. Suppose I create a database procedure and then I create a proxy on top of it, and down the line, maybe after some time, I change my underlying database procedure. What about the changes in my proxy? I will have to do those changes manually. That means I will have to incorporate those changes manually into my proxy. Suppose I forget to do that and then I try to transport my database procedure and proxy from one system to another. Definitely I will end up in getting some error. On top of it, I may not be able to understand what is the meaning of that error. So maintenance of these objects is also a challenge. Another limitation with bottom-up approach is conversion of data types. When you create a database procedure in HANA database, and then when you try to create a proxy on top of it, the system tries to convert HANA data types into ABAP data types, because HANA data types are different and ABAP data types are different. When you create a modeling view, you would have noticed this, that HANA data types are different, and when you create a CDS view, you would have noticed that ABAP data types are different. So suppose I create a custom table in HANA database, and using this custom table, I try to create a database procedure. Now I activate this database procedure and I try to create a proxy on top of it. Now in my custom table, if I have used data type varchar, and now if I try to create a proxy for this database procedure, the system will not create a proxy for that. The system will throw me an error saying that conversion of varchar is not possible and proxy cannot be created. That means when you try to create a database procedure for with your database table having a data type varchar, the system will not be able to convert it. The system will not be able to create a proxy, because for varchar type there is no corresponding ABAP data type. That means with bottom-up approach there are multiple limitations, and because of these multiple limitations, database procedure is not a recommended technique for ABAPers. And that is why in this video there are no demos or there are no hands-on activities for database procedure because database procedures are not created by ABAPers. Then what is the solution for ABAPers? SAP has come up with the next code pushdown technique for ABAPers, that is AMDP. So what is AMDP? AMDP is nothing but ABAP managed database procedure. A procedure which you create directly in ABAP layer. And then the corresponding HANA object gets created in underlying database. So unlike modeling view or unlike database procedure, AMDPs are created directly in ABAP layer and AMDPs are treated as pure ABAP objects. So what are the advantages of AMDPs? You can write multiple SQL statements in AMDPs. You can have multiple input set and multiple output set with AMDP. That means limitations of CDS views are covered in AMDP. At the same time, limitations of bottom-up approach are also covered in AMDP. For example, the first limitation of bottom-up approach is transportation. Since AMDP is created directly in ABAP layer, it is treated as a pure ABAP object. So when you create a AMDP, you can directly lock it in a request and transport it from one system to another just like any other ABAP object. So transportation is easy. It is easy to manage because it is treated as ABAP object, so you can maintain it easily. And since you are directly creating it in ABAP layer, there is no question of converting HANA data types into ABAP data types. So that means limitations of CDS view and limitations of bottom-up approach are covered in AMDP, and that is why for ABAPers, AMDP is the next important code pushdown technique through which you can handle complex requirements. So what is AMDP and what are features of AMDP? AMDP is nothing but a global class in which you define and implement your methods. When you implement a method, you can write multiple SQL statements, and that is why you can have multiple SQL statements in AMDP. AMDP is specific to database, unlike CDS views, and as of now AMDPs are available only for HANA database. And that is why you can write only HANA specific native SQL script in AMDP because AMDP is going to get executed directly in HANA database. It can be created only in ADT. However, you can view it through SE24 in GUI. You can debug AMDP through external session in ADT. And you can also have static code check for your SQL script. So now you can see on the screen how a AMDP class looks like. So here you can see a class ZAMDP_test1 is created. This is a standard template that you get when you create a global class. What is the difference between a normal class and AMDP? Or when you create a global class, how the system will understand whether this is a normal global class or a AMDP class. So for that, you have to first implement a standard interface if AMDP marker HDB in your AMDP class. So this is the first step that you have to always do whenever you create AMDP class. Then here you can see definition of types. So 4 fields are defined in these types: VBLN, POSNR, PSTYV and MATWA. 4 fields are defined in the types. Internal table is defined according to the type definition. And then next you can see method is defined ABAP_method, and another method is defined, AMDP method is defined. The name of method itself is AMDP_method. So to this method you can see there are 2 importing parameters and 1 exporting parameter. And you can also observe that these are passed by values. So when you create AMDP method, there are some restrictions. For AMDP method, you can have importing and exporting parameter and also changing parameters. You can have scalar or tabular types, but there is no returning parameter for AMDP method. And you have to remember that parameters for AMDP method are always pass by value. So here you can see there are two methods. One is a normal ABAP method and the other one is a AMDP method. So ABAP underscore method is a normal ABAP method and AMDP underscore method, second method, is a AMDP method. That means within a AMDP class you can have a combination of normal ABAP method and AMDP method. Now how these methods will be implemented? ABAP method will be implemented in a normal way. How you can implement AMDP method? Here is an example. In this case, AMDP method, AMDP underscore method is implemented, and while implementing you have to give the semantics over here. So you say by database procedure and then you say for HDB. HDB means HANA database, so you have to specify the database platform name. Then you have to say which language you are using, language SQL script. Then options read only, that is database specific options, and then using you have to mention which database tables or CDS views you are going to use while implementing this method. That means in SQL statement which you are going to write in your method, while writing that SQL statement which database table or CDS view you are going to use, that you have to mention in using clause. So here you can see the SQL statement: select distinct h.vbln i.posnar i.pstyv i.matwa from likp as h, inner join lips as I on h.vbln is equal to i.vbln, where h.vbln is equal to ivvbln. So this is a SQL statement which is written, a filter is applied on top of it, and the final output is stored in it underscore out tab. So you can see it underscore out tab is a exporting parameter for this method, and then the final output is stored over here. So you can observe that in this method implementation only SQL script is allowed, only SQL script is written. So you can see that while implementing this method, this semantics is used over here. So till now you have learned multiple code push down techniques, and I am sure you must have got a bit confused when to use what. So I will help you to revise all code push down techniques what you have learned till now. You have started with the first code push down technique, that is modeling view. So you create a modeling view in HANA database and then you create a proxy on top of it in ABAP layer which is called as external view. You have also learned that this is a bottom-up approach and there are multiple limitations of bottom-up approach, and that is why this code push down technique modeling view is not suitable for ABAPers. So because of multiple limitations of bottom-up approach, SAP has come up with the next code push down technique, that is core data services, that is CDS view. So you create a CDS view directly in ABAP layer and underlying database objects gets created in database. This is a top-down approach and this is one of the recommended code push down technique for ABAPers. However, you have also learned that there are some limitations of CDS views, that you cannot handle complex scenarios through CDS view. And that is why SAP has come up with the next code push down technique, that is a database procedure. You create a database procedure in HANA database and then you create a proxy on top of it in ABAP layer. You can handle complex scenarios through database procedure because you can write multiple SQL statements in database procedure and you can have multiple input set and multiple output set with database procedure. However, again, since this is a bottom-up approach and because of limitations of bottom-up approach for ABAPers, this code push down technique is not recommended for ABAPers. So SAP has come up with another code push down technique, that is AMDPs. AMDPs are created directly in ABAP layer and corresponding HANA object gets created automatically in the database. Since AMDPs are treated as ABAP objects, limitations of bottom-up approach are covered over here, limitations of CDS view are also covered over here, and this is one of the recommended technique for ABAPers. And if you remember, you have also learned one more important code pushdown technique, that is OpenSQL, which is also recommended for ABAPers. So whatever 4 to 5 different code pushdown techniques you have learned till now, out of those there are 3 important code pushdown techniques for ABAPers. First is OpenSQL, second is CDS views, and third is AMDPs. So till now whatever you have learned, you have to remember that these 3 techniques are important for ABAPers. Now the question is when to use what. So if you have a standalone requirement, then you go for OpenSQL. That means if you have a standalone requirement, there is no reusability for your functionality. You create a standalone report and use OpenSQL as a code pushdown technique. If in case you have a reusability for your functionality, then you either think of CDS view or AMDP. But if you can go with single output set and single output set, then you can create a CDS view. And if you want to handle complex requirements wherein you need to have multiple input sets and multiple output sets, then you can go for AMDP. So these are the ground rules that you need to always remember. And if you understand this, then you are good to go for ABAP on HANA. So all the best. Please go ahead and utilize this knowledge in your projects.